Before we get into the meditation, I want to provide you with a little bit of knowledge and information so that you get the most out of the process. You're no longer living beyond this reality. You are enslaved to this reality. The other state of mind is creation. And in the state of creation, you have to abandon your body. You have to forget about the people and things in your environment and your problems. And you have to forget about time. You have to become nobody, no thing, and no time. And that is when you begin to create energy, or you begin to utilize energy to create destiny. Living in survival, then, over time, begins to consume all the energy from the field, and the body begins to become more matter and less energy. And if the incoherence of those signals in the brain are causing incoherent messages in the body, and the body lowers its frequency because that's the nature of those emotions, the energy is consumed, so we're more matter and less energy, and the type of frequency is out of balance, it's out of rhythm, and then now we are subjected to the laws of matter, the laws of thermodynamics, the laws of entropy, and the body begins to break down, just like anything in this physical reality that breaks down, that has less energy and is more matter. That's a law of thermodynamics. It's the second law of thermodynamics. Now, take all this information and place this to the side for 1 second. We have different types of ligands in our brain and in our body. Ligar means to bond. So, the first type of ligand is called a neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitters are actually chemical messengers between nerve cells. Once you have a thought and you produce a level of mind, it takes neurotransmitters to get the brain working. Once we pay attention to that thought and we make it more real than anything else, those thoughts begin to produce chemical messengers called neuropeptides, which are assembled in the hypothalamus that are released out of the pituitary. And those neuropeptides then are chemical messengers that begin to activate a third type of ligand called hormones. A very simple graphic in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is graphic 3B, where I show neurotransmitters, neuropeptides, and hormones. So those are the three ligands. So you can turn on a set of thoughts in your brain to produce a level of mind. You pay attention to that thought. The thought produces a bridge called a neuropeptide that actually makes its way to the body, and it activates a hormonal center. You have a sexual thought in a very short amount of time. You produce the neuropeptides that begin to signal the sexual glands, and you begin to turn on that hormonal center, and you begin to broadcast information out of that center. By the same means, if you're feeling guilty, or if you're feeling unworthy, or you're thinking unworthy or shameful thoughts or guilty thoughts, you turn on a different set of neurotransmitters, activate different set of circuits in your brain to produce a different level of mind. You produce a different set of neuropeptides. They begin to activate different hormonal centers in your body, and now you're broadcasting information out of a different hormonal center. Now, the moment you think the way you feel and you feel the way you think, in time, redundancy of the cycle keeps the same hormonal centers turned on. And these hormonal centers in antiquity have been known as the chakra centers, the energy centers that a lot of the yogic traditions have acknowledged. So the first one is the sexual glands. And along with those glands is a plexus of nerves that attach or regulate those different organs in that part of the body. The second energy center primarily has to do with digestion. And because it's connected to digestive glands, then there's information that's released out of this center, and it takes energy to digest food. It takes energy to create a child. The third center is the adrenal center. That center has everything to do with predominance, fight or flight, our survival, our power, and we're mobilizing enormous amounts of energy when we're in the fight or flight nervous system, because when we're threatened, we have to protect the body and the environment and time. And when we react to conditions in our life, we're mobilizing enormous amounts of energy from the body, from the field, and it depletes the field of information. So we become a shrunk energy field. The fourth center has to do with the heart. There's a plexus of nerves in each one of these, along with the heart, and that plexus of nerves creates a level of mind. Then there's one in the throat, the thyroid, and it has a plexus of nerves that work with it, that produces a level of mind. There is a pineal gland that has a plexus of nerves surrounding it, and then we have the pituitary gland, etc. So then, as we begin to turn on different hormonal centers, and we allow ourselves to feel different feelings, we are activating each one of these centers, and each one of these centers then has a level of mind that begins to broadcast information into the field. Whether it's sexual energy, whether it's aggressive energy, or whether it's antagonistic energy, we're broadcasting information all of the time. So now, if we keep living by the survival emotions, then for the most part, we're turning on the same hormonal centers. And as we're turning on the same hormonal centers, and we are addicted to certain emotions, and those emotions are really what we pay attention to the most, then if we keep turning on that stress response and we can't turn it off, then the body begins to utilize or use up all of its energy, and we start creating very incoherent signals in each one of these centers that are connected to the glands in those areas. So then the incoherence that's broadcasted out of the sexual center, the incoherence that's broadcasted out of digestive center, the incoherence that's broadcasted out of the power center is beginning to lower the frequency of that center, and we're beginning to create disease. Now, we know this to be the truth because in many of our advanced workshops, for example, one woman had a chronic bladder infection for 6 months. She tried everything to remove that infection. And she came to the event and she blessed that center with new information for the greatest good. She elevated the energy of wholeness, of balance, of coherence. And she just placed information in that center for those cells to begin to consume. And it raised the frequency of that center. And by the 3rd day of the event, all of her pain and all of her symptoms were gone. New information placed in that center that raised the frequency or began to entrain those atoms, molecules, chemicals, cells, organs, tissues, and systems into more balance. Another woman who had celiac disease for over 10 years blessed that second center, because the second center is the center of information that has to do with processing and digesting food, and whether the emotion was guilt, whether the emotion was shame, or the emotion was fear. She just raised the frequency of that center and provided new energy, new frequency, coherent information for everything to get back online with. And she sent us her blood tests, and all of her blood tests were normal. She had no symptoms anymore because the body recalibrated itself. And so these people laid new information into the center. The information was coherent. The plexus of nerves in that center just produced a level of mind that was coherent. And as those nerves fired and wired properly and consumed that energy, it began to raise the frequency of the hormonal centers. And many, many people we have seen and witnessed were no longer sensitive to those particular foods that they were once allergic to. Now they're eating whatever they want because they overlaid new information in this area. So your job then is to raise the frequency of matter with new information. And we know from all of the research that's available, as well as our experience in our workshops, that if you combined a clear intention with an elevated emotion, you will begin to affect matter. Now, the elevated emotions of love, of gratitude, of joy, of appreciation, of inspiration, of wholeness, those elevated emotions begin to slow their frequency down, and when they begin to become matter, entrain matter to a new rhythm. And so if you could place your awareness then in the first energy center, in the perineum, and while you rest your awareness in that center, you can place your awareness in the field around that center, in the space around that center, that, by the way, is filled with information. And you can begin to bless that center for the greatest good and not expect anything. It's not your job to do the healing. It's the greater mind's job to do the healing. All you're doing is changing the resonant frequency and beginning to elevate matter to a new mind. And then if you were to rest your awareness below your navel, just a couple inches below your navel, and once you're centered in that place, as you rest your awareness in that center, to begin to become conscious of the space around your body that center broadcasts and consumes. And as you begin to put your awareness in the space around that center, we know, according to the research, that when you focus on nothing, when you focus on the space, you begin to create coherence. Now, you can't bless this center with fear. You can't bless this center with hope. You can't bless this center with frustration, because that's the exact emotion that's connected to that center. You have to bless it with an elevated emotion, and that elevated emotion begins to entrain matter. So in a state of gratitude, in a state of wholeness, in a state of oneness, you bless this center with information for the greatest good. And then if you rested your awareness in the third center, where those organs existed, where those glands existed, where the solar plexus exists that produced a level of mind, and then you became aware of the space around that center, beyond the boundaries of your body and space, and you blessed that center for the greatest good of wholeness and order. Then you laid information in the center coherently, and you were present with what you were doing. The longer you lingered in that state of being, the more information the atoms had that they were sharing. The more information chemicals and molecules were sharing, new information, and beginning to create coherence where there was once incoherence. To the tissues, into the organs, and ultimately to the systems in the body. The body begins to recalibrate itself, because all matter then begins to get a new frequency. If you rested your awareness in the space where your heart exists, right behind your sternum in the center of your chest, and you became aware of the space around your body in space that emanated from this center, and as you rested your awareness on that space, and you blessed this center to open, and you began to fill it with information for its greatest good, and you began to feel lifted and inspired, and you began to bless this center that it provide an elevated emotion for you, it's possible then that you could heal your heart, because it's new information. And if you rested your awareness in your throat, and as you rested your awareness in the center, you became aware of the field around the center, and then you began to think about what you want this center to work for, that your words become law, that your intentions create destiny, that you speak with purpose and with truth, and you began to bless the center for its greatest good and linger in an elevated emotion. that conscious energy that you are creating in the center will begin to reorganize all the tissues, all the organs, all the chemicals, cells, molecules into balance, into coherence. And if you rested your awareness in the space between the back of your throat and the back of your head, in that little pineal area, and you can find a place in there, and then become aware of the space around your head that emanated from this space, and fill that space with information, that you open this door to see through the veils, to look beyond the illusions of this reality, to begin to ask that the hidden meaning of everything be revealed to you, and you begin to bless the center with a clear intention and an elevated emotion, that in fact the chemicals that were created from the pineal gland would begin to be new neurotransmitters that would cause you to see beyond this dimension, dream beyond this dimension, because new information is laid there. And if you blessed the last energy center by resting your awareness right in the center of your head, behind your forehead, and as you rested your awareness in the center, became aware of the space around the center, and asked for harmony, asked for balance, asked for wholeness, and blessed this center and raised it to a new frequency, that the atoms, the molecules, the chemicals, the cells, tissues, the organs in this area, the brain itself, the nervous system would begin to provide new information to the entire body. And as you did this then, you would begin to elevate the body to a new line, to lift its frequency. And the pituitary gland would begin to create very profound chemicals that would begin to signal hormonal centers so that the body existed in harmony, in balance, and all the systems were working for the greater good. And finally, if you could rest your awareness about 16 inches to 2 feet above your head in that little portal, in that little door, and you can realize that this center is the door that connects you to the field, and bless this center with appreciation for being alive, that life is being given to you, and you open the door to possibility, that your future be filled with magic and wonder and freedom, and fill that center for the greatest good. And everything below it would align to that signal, to that message. And then if you can rest your awareness in the space around your body in space, that's all information there. But when we move our energy into our heart, just into our heart, we begin to become more energy and less matter. And the field has been measured up to 9 meters. We know then that we can fill this field with information.